Hey guys, I thought I'd just use this time to have a quick chat around multimedia kits. Well, I've got a couple on the bench. So what is a multimedia kit? So a multimedia kit generally is a kit they're quite specialised, quite small, and they generally are different media types, not just plastic like the traditional Revell, Tamiya kind of kits. And they're usually made by a lot of garage, we call them garage companies, but smaller boutique firms. They're from Club M, Studio 27, those kind of brands, through to the more expensive brands like Multimedia Hero. The prices are generally quite high as well. Like this one here I'm doing now, FW16, generally they start at around say $130, $200 for a smaller kit like this. The Porsche 956 I'm going to be working on for the next 6 months or so is probably to land that in New Zealand, you're spending in excess of around $1,500, so they're not cheap. But when you have a look at them, usually you'll find the detail is a lot higher. Not all the case, but generally most of the time it is. Specifically with the more expensive Model Factory Hero kits, they are insanely detailed, but they require a different tool set as well. So I've been working on this FW16 of that incentives for the afternoon, and there's a lot of work that's required, because generally if you're going to do multimedia kits, you're going to need a different approach. A lot of the plastic kits you buy from Tamiya and that kind of stuff off the shelf from your hobby shop, they'll go together pretty well. You won't need to do too much adjustments or fitting with them. I still recommend you do a dry fit on most of the parts, but for multimedia kits like this, and specifically Multimedia Hero, it's actually written in the instructions to do a dry fit of as much of the kit as you can, we're practical, before you commit to painting it, because there's so many parts there, and also many of the parts will need to be altered, adjusted, or sometimes I've had to replace the parts and build my own because they're just not going to work. So like case in point, these wheels for this FW16 are all resin and metal, so the tyres are even resin as well, so they're actually not plastic, not rubber, and the wheels are metal, as you can see here, and there's no way these resin tyres were going to fit on the car. They were just too small, so I had to machine them out using a boring bar and a lathe. If you're into lathes and machining and that kind of stuff, a boring bar is basically a tool that goes in to the inside and makes the hole bigger, and then smoothing the wheel out, making it much more centered and that stuff too, and then it actually fit together. So there was a wee bit of work on those ones, and thank goodness they were slicks. If they were tread pattern tyres, it might have been a bit more work. The other thing too is, I was asked actually on a quick question, is how would you put the kit together if you're going to dry fit it? Because obviously you're going to pull it apart to paint. Just use tape or blue tack, anything like that is what I usually do. And sometimes these kits are obviously screwed together as well, so you can screw a lot of the parts off and on. You just got to be careful that you don't do it too many times, because then eventually things will break. And so with that, and also specifically when you're doing Grand Prix cars like Formula 1, Formula 5000s, Formula Ford cars and that kind of stuff, you've got a high risk of things being bent and buckled, also motorcycles. And so it's good to have a mat like this with the grid lines on it, so then it helps you keep so you can see everything's all straight, because that's one of the biggest problems with these kind of cars, is that the one wheel might be up higher than the other and the car just rocks. So it's good to have it on a pad like this with all the grid lines on it, and you can sort of line it up, make sure everything's straight. You don't have to bend anything or cut things down, because occasionally, like I've had a few Studio 27 kits where the suspension arms one side's longer than the other, so you had to cut them down to make them all the same. And like on these wheels here, because they're resin, they're generally like hand casted and that kind of stuff. One wheel was actually bigger than the other as well, so I had to smooth them down. So that's what you generally will find with some of these brands. Obviously the tools are different too, because you'll be getting into, you don't have to do this, but you'll find that learning new techniques like soldering, like I solder a lot of the metal parts together when needed, specifically if they're getting strong, require a lot of strength, because these kits can get quite heavy. You're talking some of the big ones in kilos, not a few grams. So like these wing end plates of the FW16, I soldered them together last night. They came together pretty well. Just cleaning them up now. And for that, tools I use, I like to use butane because it's adjustable and I can take it anywhere with me. Some people like to use the electric ones with a dial with a number on it. Just keep in mind, if you are soldering this is very low temperature metal, so you need low temperature solder, adjustable soldering iron which goes down to very low temperature, and a tip too, which you can change. Like I can just take this one off and replace it with a different type, and you're away. Yeah, same sort of thing. Actually, if you are getting into that kind of stuff, I find a lot of soldering stuff from electronic shops. If you're getting into more the PC board sort of kind of things, a lot of that stuff is specifically 8, 10, 12 layer boards that you see in computers. If you're that kind of person, you'll find that kind of solder actually is really good for this, because it's very low temperature solder as well. I use it a lot. So I wouldn't buy into what people say that you need the specific solder from model factory here and that stuff, because at the end of the day, the tin and lead mixtures and that stuff is very similar to what you'll find in electronic solder. Not the general purpose stuff that you buy from, say, Mitre 10. You need to go from an electronic shop. And there's lots, but it needs to be low temperature solder, like around 80 degree, 90 degree sort of melt point, maybe 100 if you're careful. If you are going quite hot with your soldering iron, you'll need to just sort of do it in quick dabs and just watch like a hawk the metal, that it doesn't melt into a pool and you've got a part you can't use anymore. So that's the only thing you got to do. Yeah, so I haven't had too many problems with that. I use an Eroda one. It's, some people don't like them. Haven't had too many problems with it. So yeah, and from the tools, outside of soldering and that stuff, then it's always useful to have something like a drill press, a Dremel tool. My Dremel tool is used constantly. If you're lucky enough to have a lathe or a mill machine, that will always get cranked out a lot too. I use my lathe constantly. So yeah, hope that's helpful for you. Fire any questions off. I'm going to be working on this FW16 for the next few days, as well as the Porsche. So I switch between the two. When I get sick of one, I'll just jump over to the other one. So it's nice having a bench that you can do that. So yeah, hope that helps you guys, and talk to you soon.